Thank you very much, fellow Africans, and welcome to our 99th episode of the Change for African campaign. Today is on Thursday, and on Thursday, as usual, since we started the daily episodes of the Change for African campaign, it's all about our fourth pillar of the Change for African campaign, where we focus on matters to do with the living standards of our African people. Living standards of our African people, as we said since then, generally the living standards of our African people, the majority, status of the living standards of these people of Africa, it is very destitute. The conditions are not promising. So there's something that needs to be done, and that thing is a very, very complex, it's a very complex journey towards that. So we need to figure out. That is why the civilization part of it has been there. The daily episodes of the Change for African campaign are all about the civilization journey of trying to see that there is that potential. We have the contingency, and we can be able to have that success as a continent of Africa. So, fellow Africans, as we had said, this week, today is our second last episode of the Change for African campaign, and I'm a very grateful African citizen. And so it's about the partnership of the. Remember, I think in most of these, the last 40 episodes, it has been all about the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals throughout. So, number one, we found that the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, they have 17 goals. But then its last goal is all about the partnership of the goals, because all the way from ending poverty, saying no to hunger, quality education, we need some good healthcare facilities, all these things, clean energy, infrastructure, innovation and technology, all these goals have been there. But then at the end of the day, for us to be able to see results, for us to be able to achieve anything, they must be a solid. There must be a solid partnership between different sectors and different stakeholders, so that we can be able to really achieve what we want as Africa. Moses is Africa, though it's also the same thing that should be applied globally. But then we are African, and Africa is our business, so we discuss Africa, everything first in the African context before we try and see the other places of the globe. So what I'm saying at this time is that as we end the daily episodes of the Change for African campaign, let us put in mind that what we've been speaking about, it is live and well. The living standards of our African people are not up to standards. They are still very dilapidated, and destitute conditions, or they live in very destitute conditions, that they need to be something, that there's something need to be done, as Africans. And this is a collective thing. This is something that is calling for all of us, upon all of us as the African citizens, to come together and make sure that what are we going to do, because partnership of the goals, speaking about the living standards of Africa, as I've said before, countless times, that we are speaking about some of the very fundamental things, the very fundamental things you're speaking about. We have the likes of access to quality education, access to good infrastructure in one way or the other. We have different types of infrastructure, speaking about just the diverse things concerning the living standards of the living standards of the African population. And then we also speak about the status of the hunger. Now, one of the goals of the UNSG goals is about hunger. That is a very critical goal. We are speaking about things to do with malnutrition, speaking about things to do with health, as I've said. So these are the live thing that we're speaking about, and these are things that are a threat to the human life and the human well-being. So if Africa, a few years from now, our workforce, the human workforce, would have really gained more potential than it has now, though we currently have a very great potential in terms of the human resource, and I spoke yesterday about the resources, also about the mineral resource, we have potential in it. But then once the other population, because this population has a very higher potential, but you realize that in the same population, the majority of the population, they live in very destitute conditions. So when you have some things like healthcare, failing, like the education system failing, meaning that now this population of Africa is going to lack the energy, is going to lack the skills, is going to lack the good health to be able to thrive in different sectors. So it's incumbent upon all of us and the concerned Africans, Africans who believe that there is a possibility that something must be done. Let us come together, because I am very optimistic that it is possible for us to change the lives of Africa. So it is not something a walk in the park. Many people will think that, but it is not something a walk in the park. This is a real journey. This is a very complex journey, and it is a very, very, for us to get that solution, it is very complex. But that is what it's calling for us. That is what we have to do, the hard things. for us to be able to live easy, because everything is possible, and more so in Africa. Africa is a land of great potential. So fellow Africans, it is all about the partnerships. Let people partner so that we can see how we are going to salvage, how we are going to have some good living standards of the African people, or the standards of the African people, the living standards of the African people, to be elevated to some degree, and in one or the other, so that Africans must thrive as a society that is coherent, that is there's that strong cohesion in terms of how are we going to make sure that all the African population, they come together, and the living standards of African people, they are promising. Currently not promising. So fellow Africans, allow me to end at that point. That is our episode number 99, the second last daily episode of the Change for Africa campaign. After this, we said it is the practical. Thank you. Have some great time.